this segment is about the Ponderosa Ranch House. And as you all know, the Ponderosa Ranch House came in many, many different embodiments, shapes and forms. And this is kind of a complicated segment in that we've got some special speakers. There are 3 special speakers during this segment after I complete my section. And so if you could hold your questions and comments until the end, and then hopefully we'll have some time to discuss them, write down something that you might want to ask at that point. And so we'll go ahead and push on. So this is about the Ponderosa Ranch House. The original set started here at Paramount Pictures. Paramount was the home for Bonanza for many, many years before they moved to Warner Brothers quite late in the series. But Paramount is the original home of Bonanza. This is the way the town looked from the air back in the day. And if you look over here, here's the mountain. And this is the Western Street. I don't know how to get rid of that bar, Ginger. Sorry. Here's the Western Street. And right here is the big painted sky that was on the end of the sound stage at Paramount. And this was actually a big, deep tank, what they called the B tank. And that tank had been used in many, many Paramount productions over the years. But for the purposes of the Western set, which had been there through the 50s and the early 60s, or all of the 60s, it had been filled in so that we could have a Western town. This is a Google Earth shot of the way it looks today. There's the B tank. You can see where the actual tank was. Here's that blue sky again, that big painting. And right over here is where that mountain used to be. This was the old Desilu Studios, and the mountain had been built to hide that building. So this is where the mountain was, and this is where the Western town was. Bonanza was filmed at the Western town, of course, but it was also filmed on stages. And the 2 primary stages were stage 18 and stage 17. This is looking at the Paramount Studios from the Melrose Avenue side. Here you can see stages 18 and 17. This Melrose gate is the gate that you saw at the very beginning that I showed you that had the 2 arches. This picture actually is Melrose Avenue at the bottom, has Gower Street on the left, Van Nuys on the right, and above Paramount Studios is a cemetery called Hollywood Forever Cemetery. This is the classic look of the ranch house. This is what we all remember when the boys would come riding up, and this is the form it took for most of the run of Bonanza. It varied a little bit over the years. As we've already talked about in some of our other segments, it also doubled as part of sets for other houses. But this is the classic Bonanza house that we remember. This is the one that was on the set. Every year, they would bring in new Ponderosa pine trees. They would bring them down and set them up on the set. And then when they'd start looking ratty, they would go out and get new ones. So they tried to make it as authentic as possible. These hitching rails here would come and go. They would be in one scene and not in another. So they did take liberties with changing this around quite a bit over the years. Here's an interior shot of the set. This again is the classic room that we're used to. This is an early version. This dates to the season 1, maybe 2, before they had the long Empire style settee and the coffee table. So this is a fairly early version of the ranch house. Here's a little bit later picture showing Adam, Haas, and Ben in the room. This is a later one because the furniture is all in the right place for the way we remember it being most of the time, including the blue chair. And that blue chair is pretty significant to Bonanza fans as Adam's blue chair. I want to go ahead and move on to Ponderosa II. Ponderosa II was the next embodiment of the Ponderosa Ranch House, because just within a year or two of Bonanza premiering on television, Lauren Green allowed that a house could be built. Actually, Lauren Green had it built. He didn't allow it. He had to get permission. But the house was built in Mesa, Arizona. And the reason it was built in Mesa, Arizona is because Lauren Green was on the board of directors for a brand new community called Golden Hills, or Apache Country Club Estates. And it was on a golf course. And this is back in the early 60s when the baby boomers had young families, and their parents were getting older and wanting to move to retirement communities that were over 55, where they could play golf and swim and just basically have a good time. And that's why Ponderosa II is where it is in Arizona, is because it was built to promote Apache Country Club Estates. It was the flagship home that they hoped would bring people in to build houses there. And they did. They did build houses in that community and filled it up. And Ponderosa II still today is the flagship for that community. After Tom and I bought Ponderosa II in 2011, we had been corresponding with Chuck Green, and I wanted to share with you part of a personal letter that he sent us, where he said he was very pleased to hear that we had purchased his dad's home away from home, and that we were opening it up for others to enjoy. And he was happy to hear that Bonanza's life is still going strong in so many locations around the world. So I wanted to share that with you because Chuck had become a good friend of ours, and we were so pleased to get his endorsement. This is a picture of Ponderosa II later in life. The very first picture that I showed you was back when it was built in 1962 and 63. This picture comes from the time that Tom and I owned it. We had worked on restoring the interior to look like it did back when Lauren Green owned the home. It had been completely remodeled inside. It had been painted white. They had this white carpet all over everything, even over the wood floors. And it was not the Ponderosa. So Tom and I spent the better part of 2 years stripping, staining, ripping out carpet, and finding furniture that approximated what the Ponderosa Ranch House should look like. So this is just a shot of the way it looked in later years when Tom and I were there. We had several events there. We had 4 actually, and this is a picture of Andy. During one of our events, we would hold seminars in the great room. We would have parties and barbecues and dances. And at one time in the 2019 Bonanza convention, we had over 100 people in this one room. So it was a massive, great room, and it is, according to Lauren Green, the same size as the room on the set. I want to play for you now a little segment, just a little segment video that I did about Ponderosa II, just as a look back.
I built a place, yes, I built a home. I built a big house in Arizona, which I call Ponderosa II, Roman numerals II, and it is an exact replica of Ponderosa's set.
This is from the Ponderosa Ranch, and it's typified by a short wing here, a long wing there, the single window on the second floor. That's the design we mostly remember. It's the design that was on the show most of the years, and it's what the Ponderosa Ranch was built to look like. However, the first year and most of the second year, this is what the set looked like. There was a long wing here, often referred to as a bunkhouse on the show, and everything else is the same. The single window, the long porch, the wing over here that's off the picture. Well, son of a gun, they also used another drawing, which was just an artist rendering to show a long shot of the Ponderosa, and they used this through the first 2 years occasionally as well. And again, here's the house, here's the single window, there's no wing on this side, and a long wing out front. Well, here's that first shot again of the long wing on the left side, and here's Lauren Green's Ponderosa. Same thing, here's the door, there's another door back here, another door there, kitchen window, kitchen window. Well, Lauren Green's house was begun here in Mesa in 1962, the third year of the show, and it was finished in 1963, and it's our feeling that they designed the Lauren Green's Ponderosa based on the plans that were being used on the show in the very first 2 years, because it took some planning to design the house, to get it built, and get it finished by 1963. And it's really fortuitous because modern homes have garages. So this is a garage. You can't see the garage doors in this picture, but they had to have a garage somewhere. So when I first saw the house, I said, oh, too bad this doesn't look right. Until my wife pointed out, well, that's what it looked like in the first 2 years. The question we get asked the most is, why Arizona? Why didn't they build it in Nevada, or at least in the mountains of Arizona, someplace which looked right? The first picture I saw of it, that Louise took that first day she saw it, there were palm trees behind it. There are no palm trees on the Ponderosa.
Your head will actually touch the ceiling above the door, but it gives it a great perspective that there's a great large upper story up there that really doesn't exist. Andy Clyde will now go up the stairs to show you the perspective on the door and see the fantastic view from the top of the stairs that we saw so often on Bonanza, looking down into the great room. It's actually a small door. The gun case is another constructed piece, and it was made out of 2 bookcases that I had in my home. And we were watching an episode of Bonanza one night, one of the earlier episodes, where the gun racks were clearly visible, and they had been bookcases. You could see where the shelves were in the bookcase. So the set designers actually did the same thing we did. They took bookcases and turned them into gun racks. This wouldn't be the Ponderosa without a big rough wood coffee table, and since we spent many times looking at the coffee table on the episodes, we watched it over and over. It was pretty easy to see how it had been built. So again, we went and bought the rough lumber, and Tom put together a coffee table.
Well, I'll keep it traveling on, keep looking at the dawn, till I can lay this lonesome body down. And when that day is come, I never more will roam. Every road I see will lead me home. When that day is come, I never more will roam. And every road I see will lead me home.
So Ponderosa II is in a new era. Tom and I sold Ponderosa II in 2019. Tom's health was beginning to fail, and so we moved to Tucson, Arizona. The couple that bought Ponderosa II are Keenan and Cindy Strand. Tragically, Keenan passed away this last summer from cancer, and is such a tragedy for the family, for Cindy. And it was also a tragedy for Ponderosa II, because Keenan loved Bonanza, loved the house, and he did so many things in conjunction with Cindy to keep the flame alive. So the Ponderosa II is alive and well. Cindy is keeping it going and is living there and keeping it in Keenan's memory. Keenan did so much for the house. He created this gate on the golf course that is all made out of iron, and he had Lauren Green's replica Bonanza Ranch House stamped into the iron that's on this gate. So I'm really, really proud of the legacy of Ponderosa II. So even though Tom and I aren't there and Keenan isn't there, the Ponderosa II will continue. It will live on, and the flame won't die. I want to move on quickly to Ponderosa Ranch. And the reason I say quickly is because there's been so much written, spoken about, pictures taken, so much talk about the Ponderosa Ranch. It is very important in the history of Bonanza. There is no question. A man by the name of Bill Anderson had a rental stable. He rented horses up there on the North Shore of Lake Tahoe. He also had a construction business, and he was an opportunist. And he noticed that Bonanza was becoming a big hit, and that the Ponderosa Ranch on the map was approximately in the location where his riding stables were. So he took advantage of the situation and built his own Ponderosa Ranch. And the Ponderosa Ranch at Incline, from 1967 to 2004, was an extremely popular tourist attraction. Most all of us have been there at one time or another. This is the house at the Ponderosa Ranch. Unfortunately, it's not there anymore. The land was sold, and a developer is coming in and most likely will build luxury houses or condominiums there. It's a prime piece of Lake Tahoe real estate, and there's a joke about Incline Village that the billionaires have pushed all the millionaires out. And that's about the truth. It has become an extremely sought after and pricey neighborhood. So this land is now completely vacant, and the Ponderosa Ranch House is in storage, and we're told by the Thunderbird Lodge, who now controls it, that it hopefully will be put back together again at a new site, possibly in eastern Nevada. Here's another shot of the Ponderosa Ranch, the house at Incline in the snow. I always kind of liked this one because we never got to see the Ponderosa Ranch House in snow on the set. That would have been extremely difficult for them to duplicate. Occasionally you would see a little snow in the front yard, or the men would be wearing coats and jackets, but never really a snow scene. So I've always kind of liked this particular picture. Here's another picture of the house at the Ponderosa Ranch in Incline Village. Again, just classic Bonanza. And it is truly a shame that this house no longer exists. So as it stands, Ponderosa II is the only remaining standing Ponderosa Ranch House. And one last shot of the house at Incline Village that actually overlooked the lake. Along with the house, there was a theme park. There was a village that had all kinds of arcades and things that you could do. They had shootouts and gunfights in the street, and Haas burgers. Any of us that got to go there had a Haas burger. So it was quite a tourist attraction for many, many years. When you went to the Ponderosa Ranch House in Incline Village, it was roped off. They had a walking path that came in through the kitchen area. You walked around this roped off area to look at the room, and then you walked out a door off to the left. So you did not have free access to the house. You had to stay on the path, as it were. And one of the things that we did at Ponderosa II in the years that we had events there is we didn't want people to be limited. So we wanted them to go wherever they wanted to go, see whatever they wanted to see, climb the stairs, sit on the furniture, because this particular Ponderosa, you couldn't do that. And here's one last look at the Ponderosa Ranch House in Incline Village. They also had a blue chair. Their blue chair is probably a little closer to the one that was on the set. We found a blue Queen Anne wing chair that was pretty close. Now I would like to introduce Earle Shroyer. Earle, are you with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can. It's so nice to have you with us. Earle Shroyer, for those of you that do not know, helped build the Ponderosa Caravan. And if you don't know what that is, Earle's going to tell us a little bit about it. Earle was a builder. He also toured with the caravan to the many rodeos and state fairs that it attended over the years. Earle?
Thank you, Louise. It's good to be with you again and have a lot of memories from Mesa and all the traveling that I did. But this is a brochure that we handed out when we were on tour. But the pictures that you see here, this is the pictures that was taken of the actual set that we had built in Mesa. There was a company called Walker Displays in Phoenix, I'm sorry. And so as we go through a few pictures here, I wanted to just mention a few things here. But for example, the second picture with the dining room set, they tried to copy the dining room set from the Paramount Studios, and they made a mold of one of the chairs, and then they made a steel framework, and they molded these chairs into what you see here. And each chair weighed over 100 pounds, which was very difficult for moving around. But this set, for example, the fireplace, we built a fireplace, and it's built in two sections out of styrofoam. And this is back in 1967 when we built this set. And then over the, probably about the center where you can see the white roof overhead, we had a screen, projector screen that was electric. We would bring that down, and then we showed about a 5-minute movie that Lauren Green, Michael Lennon, Dan Blocker had put together just for the Caravan show. And so we would show that. It was on a 16 millimeter film strip. And later I converted that to a DVD. And I still have it today. And there was Lauren Green. When he was come over from his Mesa home, he come over on the weekends to see the actual building that we were putting together. The wood that we used was just a plywood. It was called a cedar sawn plywood, and the mortar between the boards was made out of styrofoam and spackle, and we just made it look realistic as far as having real cement in the between the logs. So this is the actual set that we built, and I worked for Walker Displays in building this, and several men from Walker Displays had gone over to the Paramount Studios and had taken hundreds and hundreds of pickers to try to duplicate what was on the actual set. So in the windows that you see in the second picture at the top right, we just had painted scenes behind the windows. They were built in. So this is the brochure that we passed out. Michael North was the agent that promoted the Ponderosa Caravan. Let's go to the next slide here. There's Lauren Green. This is the actual building that we had built. It was built very lightweight. We're going to look at a couple other slides here to show you the actual construction of it, but it was very lightweight. We had a contract with Manpower Employment Agency, and they were nationwide, and we toured all across the United States and Canada. We were even in Alberta, Canada for the Calgary Rodeo and Stampede, which went over really well. In 1968, we were even at the Indianapolis 500 before the races. And in one day, we had over 5,000 people come through our set. We had the interior roped off, like the picture that Louise had shown just a moment ago, that was on the Incline Village, which I was there too, 1995. And so we had it roped off so we could give guided tours through the set. Off to the very left of the main entrance, we had there was a window, and it showed in the very first slide the little window, and that was our ticket sales. Can you believe it? We sold tickets to men, women, and children for 25 cents a person. This is in 1967, 68, and 69. It was on the road for about 3 years, and we were in a different major city about every 3 weeks. I mentioned about the Manpower Employment Agency, and we would in a different city about every 3 weeks. And Michael North had made arrangements with Manpower Employment Agency to have 12 to 14 men standing by when 3 semis drove into town. Let's go to another slide here, Louise. Well, here's the interior of it, and this shows the styrofoam fireplace. All the furnishings, they tried to duplicate all the furniture as best they could. And just like the big coffee table, I call it, in front of the fireplace that Louise said Tom built theirs. And we had the rugs, we had all the chandeliers, the lights, just basically everything as closely as possible. So it would take us about 14 hours to set it up and get everything done. We had low voltage lighting in the set, and it was just a lot of fun to give guided tours through this set. We had such a multitude of people from Florida to New Jersey, Denver. We were in Albuquerque. I think that's where Louise first saw it. Is that correct, Louise?
Yes.
Yeah, you were in. That's when you first saw it in 1968.
1968.
Yeah, and so that's how Louise was learned about it. And when they bought the property in Mesa, I contacted them. I heard about them buying the Ponderosa Ranch House #2. And so I contacted Louise and we got together, and then things changed a lot since that time. And I was giving special presentations to the gangs that was come in every 2 years. And of course, in 2019, we had our final program there. And Louise, did you mention that in Mesa that it's on the historic registry? Am I correct?
Yes, I didn't mention that, Earle. Thank you very much. It is also, it is on the Mesa
registry, the Mesa house. So
yes,
it looks beautiful. And Tom and Louise did a marvelous job fixing it up. Anyway, this is the actual set that we put together. Let's go to another slide. Okay, this is the stairway that went to nowhere. And we had a lot of questions about that. You can see the gun rack, and these pictures were just black and white, but we had everything roped off like we mentioned earlier, had it all roped off so people couldn't sit in the chairs and everything. And to give a guided tour, the little video lasted about 5 minutes. So we'd rush them in and give them a quick video tour and let them go. And it was just a marvelous time. I enjoyed it so much. I was young and energetic, and we had a great time. Let's go to another slide. Here's the front of the Ranch House Ponderosa going together. So there was 2 semi-trailers, 40-foot semi-trailers that parked 38 feet and 3 inches apart. And I don't have a slide here of the other one, but we had to park these things exactly square and 38 feet and 3 inches apart. And one wall of each trailer hinged down and ended up making a 2,000 square foot floor. Everything was built very lightweight with all the plywood and everything bolted together. And the one guy in the kind of the green shirt there, that was Ed. And there was another guy by the name of Jim and myself, but Ed was kind of the honcho of everything. And we just had a team. We'd each one of us take a team of 4 or 5 guys each and do a certain particular part of the building, putting it together. So let's go to another slide here.
Oops, I went too far. Sorry.
Louise, this picture was taken in Tucson at one of the malls there on Broadway, if I remember correctly. I can't remember the name of the mall. But anyway, before we even had the second truck painted up with a Bonanza, this is our second stop after we had our grand opening in November of 1967 at the Arizona State Fair. There was probably, in the couple weeks that we were there in Phoenix at the Arizona State Fair, there was probably close to 60,000 people toured the set. So I'm in this picture, I'm at the first truck. I had hair, I was skinny. And then that was Ed and that was Jim over the other truck, the far back. But we had a lot of experience driving these trucks up and down the freeways. We got attention no matter where we went. Many times NBC affiliates would greet us at the edge of town and escort us into wherever we were supposed to be setting up. And that was fun. So we got interviewed by a lot of television folks from NBC television. Is there any more pictures there, Louise?
No, that's kind of where I ended it. Earle, do we know what happened to the Ponderosa Caravan?
The last I heard, two of the trailers, and they were what they call electronic trailers. It's like moving vans. They call them low boys. I understood two of them were on the back lot at NBC Studios. Now, this was back probably in the late 70s that I heard that. So I don't know whatever happened to them. I mean, they could be converted back to moving vans easily. But for example, this first truck where the word Bonanza name is, that whole wall would fall down flat. And then the other truck, the third truck in the background, the other side of the wall would fall down and it would make a 2,000 square foot floor when we got it all put together. So, and then the third truck would haul all the furniture in the fireplace. So everything had to be packed just right to fit into everything. And it was quite a chore to do that. And after doing it about every 3 weeks or so, we learned how to do it and get it done pretty quickly.
How long did the caravan travel?
It was around 3 years. And when we were back in Burbank on the back lot of NBC Studios, many times we were repairing the set because, because it was all built in sections, and lots of times the set was being damaged, and we had to repair it all the time. And we had a 16 millimeter film strip that we had shown. That it was a big box that set up on the roof to project the picture on the screen that came down from the ceiling. So we had a lot of difficulties with that 16 millimeter, I believe it was. And I got a copy of it. They gave me a copy of that and I had it converted to a DVD. So I have that. But I don't know, Louise, I thought I gave you a copy of that. Do you have that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it would be neat to show that sometime. But it was a DVD that was made by Lauren Green, Michael Lennon, and Dan Blocker just for the Ponderosa Caravan. And for example, Michael Lennon, they're showing him on a horse running and he gets shot and he falls off the horse. The horse drags him across the prairie. Another picture is Dan Blocker in a barroom fight and he's knocking a guy out of the window of the bar. And interesting enough, most people even today don't know that the show was produced weekly in 17 languages and went to 77 countries. That's how popular it was. And from 1959 to 1973, they were getting mail from all over the world about the Ponderosa Ranch House, whether it be the furniture, the fireplace, or the horns on the fireplace, or the dining room set, or Ben's office, whatever it was. We were getting constant, they were getting constant letters at NBC Studios. And that's what kind of gave Lauren Green the idea to build this set. This caravan was a partnership between Lauren Green and NBC Studios. Michael Landon and Dan Blocker did not have any financial interest in it, from what I was told. But every once in a while, Michael Landon and Dan Blocker would fly out to wherever we were at, whether it be Florida. Michael was with us in West Palm Beach, Florida, and we would have them come in. And of course, that was a big drawing card to have Michael Landon or some of the other movie stars come and join us on the set.
Earle, great.
Lauren Green was with us in Phoenix for several weeks, and that just drew a big crowd.
That's wonderful, Earle. Thank you so very much for sharing your experiences with the caravan. This is something that not a lot of Bonanza fans were aware existed, so we really appreciate your participation.
Well,
Thanks, Earle.
It was a lot of fun, and it was good to see everybody again.
Thanks,
you.
Earle.
Okay.
Okay. About 10 years ago, there were Ponderosa Ranch House blueprints available. These were full sets of actual working blueprints that had been designed by an architect. They were actually blueprints you could build from. They had plumbing, electrical, everything you would need to have to build a house. We sold them for a period of time. Interest kind of waned, so they haven't been available for quite a long time, but there were Ponderosa Ranch House blueprints. That's kind of a cool legacy for the house as well. I want to show a few examples of Ponderosa Ranch House commercial likenesses. This one we're all probably familiar with. In fact, I would venture that a great many of us have these in our homes. There were many, many of them produced. Tom and I used to make a special trip to antique stores and junk shops to find them. And at one time we had about a dozen. This was probably the most iconic commercial likeness of the house. This is a little likeness that I have in my curio cabinet. It's a little Ponderosa Ranch House. It's quite small. It's made out of resin. Found that in a Goodwill store. So you never know where you're going to find a Ponderosa Ranch House. Ponderosa Ranch plates. Many of us have plates, and they come in a lot of different styles. A few years ago, I was comparing plates with some other Bonanza fans, and we have a lot of different plates. This one in particular came in different colors. This one has a blue rim. Someone showed me one with a green rim, and one with like a rose colored rim. So they did come in different styles. This one I found online is kind of a and this is a Briar Horse offering, and it says Bonanza Ponderosa Ranch Set. And that's stealing a little bit from Bonanza, I think. And it doesn't really look like it, but it's another bit of evidence that shows that Bonanza and Ponderosa Ranch are alive and well. Okay, I want to move on now to some house models. We have some very talented Bonanza fans, and I want to show a couple of them here right at the beginning that I don't have spokespersons for. The first one is a Christmas ornament. This is one of those clear plastic ornaments, you know, you can buy that you can put anything you want to on the inside. And one of our dear friends in Germany, Ulla sent this to us as a gift. Actually, she brought it to us to Ponderosa II during one of our events. And it's a little miniature Ponderosa Ranch House inside a Christmas ornament. This is a very cherished possession. I put it on my tree every year. I will for the rest of my life. Pat Hurst in the UK, who wasn't able to be with us today, several years ago built a series of scenes, Ponderosa Ranch House model rooms, and these rooms are about dollhouse size. And why I wanted to show these to you is because the detail that she included in these is absolutely amazing. Here's a scene of the main room with the fireplace. Here's a scene looking across into the dining room. She did all of this in the UK, hand built a great deal of these furniture items and the lamps. And I just felt like that this is something that had to be seen. When I talked to her a week or so ago, she said, unfortunately, a lot of this has been lost because she had moved and it had been boxed up and it got broken. And I'm very sad to hear that because she had an amazing model. Here's a little close-up of the table with the horse and the Bible that was always there. Here's the Stairway to Nowhere and the gun rack. She decorated it at Christmas time. So here's the great room with their Christmas tree and the garlands strung across and down the stairs. I included this one because she did the kitchen. And this is an amazing version of Hop Sing's kitchen, right down to the little copper pots and pans and the coffee grinder and the sink and pump and the various things that you would find in a 19th century kitchen. Pat Hurst was an amazing model builder, and I just wanted to showcase these for you since she wasn't able to be here to do that. Now I'd like to introduce Barb McDonald. Barb has also been building a Ponderosa Ranch House. I have the three photos of the exterior that you sent me, Barb. Did you want to screen share and show us anything else?
Well, I hope you can see I've got it here. So yeah, I started this at the beginning of the summer. And I just did it by eye. I just used the, images of the Ponderosa and, just sort of, I'm a graphic designer. So I just sort of, there's this many of these, this is this long compared to that. And I've made it so the roof comes off so I can put lights in, Hop Sing's kitchen I'll eventually probably get to the inside too. And there's all kinds of stuff I need to do. I need to put in like the little picnic table and the flower pots and the rocking chair at the front door and the lighting fixture. So it's a work in progress. It'll probably will be for the rest until I can't stand anymore. So yeah, I just went to the dollar store and got, balsa wood. And this is the ceiling. The roofing was done with watercolor paper. I cut them all up and shingled them. A lot of the posts are just twigs that I found out in the backyard. And so it was really fun to do. Lots of popsicle sticks, lots of, toothpicks and things like that. Little things like, little thing of wood, little, all kinds of little stuff like that. So yeah.
Where did you get the horses?
The horses I found at the dollar store. This is Chubb and Sport. I just found them in one of those, in the toy section. They have little farm animals there. My problem is this is 1 inch equals 1 foot. So it's kind of challenging to find. I have to find, some cowboys that'll fit in there that I can paint. But, there's always a treasure hunt to be found. So.
Awesome, Barb.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks so much for sharing. I'd like to move on now to Marla Fair. Marla is also an incredible model builder, and she is known for her Bonanza movable men, which are the American character Bonanza
action figures.
And she has figured them prominently in a lot of great scenes. And I'll turn this over now to Marla. Tell us a little bit about how you did this.
I was playing with the movable men. I had them when I was a little kid, and I was actually down after an operation, and I wondered if I could find them, and I did find them on eBay. And at that time, they didn't cost anything. I think I may have caused the rise in prices of the movable men. And so I bought them and I started playing with them. And then eventually I realized I needed a Ponderosa. So my first Ponderosa was 2 walls with contact paper on the floor and the walls. And then I moved up to some hand-done paper and I wasn't satisfied with that. So then I moved to a Barbie dream house and I redid it with contact paper. That was my very first one. And the Barbie dream house is still my Ponderosa main room and kitchen, or excuse me, and dining room. But I decided I didn't want anything in it that wasn't 19th century. So I redid the entire thing with wood and metal, and I tried to keep all plastic out of it. So
Would you
when
like
see-
me to show the pictures?
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you see pictures of it now, it's all done with wood.
Okay, here is
There we go.
Marla and her Bonanza movable men. In front
That's-
of your
Yeah,
Ponderosa
that's the
Ranch
exterior set. Yeah, so that's a different set from the
from
the great room. Yeah.
which is awesome. Here's one of the interior shots. You want to tell us about this?
Well, I was laughing when Earle was talking because his fireplace is made out of styrofoam. Mine is made out of egg cartons. I felt a little better about that. So I found out about how to do stone out of egg cartons, which is pretty interesting. And then I actually stuccoed paper. So I had art paper that I did my actual stuccoing on to do the walls and then build everything else out of wood. Mine is a mix of 1/12 accessories, which is what Barb's working in, but these guys are 1/9. So they're like 1 inch, to 9, they're not Barbie size, but they're not dollhouse size. So I have to manipulate a lot of things like the chair on the far right-hand side. That's a Barbie chair. The dining room chairs are Barbie chairs, but they're out of China, so they're half the size they should be. So they actually worked perfectly. Most of the lighting is dollhouse lighting, which is why it's really not in scale. It really ought to be a little bit bigger than it is, but very, very hard to find those things. And then, of course, I decided to electrify it after about a year or so, which just made all the difference. It's amazing when you put the lights in them. So just a lot of time and fun. I finally did do an entire wood floor too. That was contact paper, but the problem was when I took photos, the light would flash on the floor and it would be shiny. So I got rid of that and did a regular wood floor. So yeah, that's obviously from The Wooing of Abigail Jones. That's Joe flying off his chair there. So that shows you my version of Adam's chair. I had to build that. The base and the top of it are actually 2 different things. Then Ben's is actually a dollhouse size one, but it's a big one. I also found there was a whole group of musicals that were put out by a company that were wood, and they're actually just about the right size for the guys. That's what the table there is. That actually winds up and is a musical. So mine is kind of a mix of all different scales because I have to just fake it in order to get everything that I need done the way that I want to get it done. Because they're strange size. Yeah, I like that one. That one's cool. My stairway goes to nowhere too. Just goes up and goes off onto a catwalk at the back, like the real one. But the staircase is also Barbie. If you've ever remember seeing the Holiday Barbie, it was her with her 2 sisters, and they were standing on this red and black staircase that also played music. I whacked the heck out of that thing and painted it and got 2 or 3 of them and built the staircase out of it. So all kinds of different things.
Marla, it's amazing.
Yeah, and Hop Sing's changed over the years, if you guys have noticed him. My one Hop Sing got tired of me making him work so much and he disappeared. So I had to find another one. Hop Sing is interesting because the figure is way too small. So he actually most times hidden behind the chairs, he's standing on a block because that's the only way I can get him to the right size. So I do all kinds of manipulation in order to make things look right. And I like creating actual stories and adventures.
That's awesome, Marla. Thank you so much for sharing these. Sourcing all these materials for both you and Barb is amazing where you came up with the things that you include in your models. Thank you so much.
She said it's a treasure hunt and it's persistence. That's what it is.
It is. It absolutely is. You got that right. Thank you so much for participating, Marla. Is anyone else building a model, or are you thinking about building a model?
Someone named Lynn writes, I have a Ponderosa house in my living room that I built during COVID. It was great fun. So Lynn, if you want to talk about that, you're on.
Well, that was a great thing to do for COVID. Lynn, come back to us if you can. That would have been an excellent project, actually, being shut in your house for days and weeks on end. Any other questions there that I may have missed? Well, I will go back and read through the comments. I haven't had a chance to do that. But I really appreciate your attention to this segment. As I mentioned at the beginning, the Ponderosa Ranch House is not a simple subject. It's pretty complicated and had an awful lot going on over many, many, many years. So I will go ahead and turn this back over to Ginger. Are you here?
I'm right here.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to make a plug for a few years ago when we did the first virtual event like this. Marla and I paired up and we did a script that Joan Markowitz had written that years ago called Ponderosa Spirit. And we used a bunch of people to do the voices, and Marla created all the different little shots, and then we added in sound effects and
Oh, that's
fun.
awesome.
they acted out the whole like script. Another shout out I wanted to give to Marla is that when we were putting the bonus stuff together for the DVD set, she actually had put together a series of them with some original poems that she had written. So if you haven't checked out her Facebook page, well, you have two of them. Actually, you have three of them. She was also instrumental as trained people for the
I have a
Michael
lot.
bench dedication ceremony. If you didn't get it from Collingswood, so she's
Yeah. Thank you to that for that, you and Andy.
woman. But it's good to see your little smiley face. We haven't seen you in a while.
Right.
But, did anybody have anything else they wanted to contribute as far as the ranch house? Any last comments?
Well, I'd like to say that Louise was accurate in pointing out how complex and how intricate the Ponderosa Ranch House is to the history of the Bonanza television series. And I think it's an apt comparison to think about Star Trek and the USS Enterprise. It's impossible to separate the two concepts. And I think the same can be said of the Ponderosa Ranch in all its incarnations. And I want to thank once again Louise and her husband Tom for having the wherewithal and the dedication and the vision to be patient and to do research and find out, number one, where Lorne Greene's Ponderosa II was constructed, and two, being able to purchase it, and three, being able to convert it back, to restore it back to the way it was when it was built in 1963. That's just an extraordinary series of accomplishments that Tom and Louise did, and we all owe them a great deal for doing that. And I also want to
Thank you, Andy.
and I also want to tip my hat to Earle Shroyer, who, after all these years, has kept the flame burning and tells us the marvelous stories of taking the first incarnation of the Ponderosa Ranch designed for public viewing across the United States. And we're so fortunate that he is able to be someone who can share firsthand recollections of what it was like at the height of Bonanza's popularity while it was still in production. So I'm very grateful to Earle for being able to do that, and also for his generosity in being able to provide one of, I think, only 2 copies in existence of the very rare Ponderosa Caravan 16mm film, which I was able to include as a special feature in one of the DVD sets. And my thanks to Marla and to Barb and to Pat and all these wonderful, talented people who have been inspired by the show generally and the Ponderosa Ranch specifically to make their own little Ponderosas. And as Louise mentioned, she and Tom were very ingenious and used their ingenuity to offer plans to people based on the Ponderosa Ranch designed by Earle Hedrick. And Earle Hedrick's grandson, Jim McDonald, I had hoped would stop by during the segment, but I guess he wasn't able to do so, but maybe we'll see him tomorrow.
I'm here.
Oh, you are here.
Yes, I'm here, Andy. Let me put my video on here first. No, I've been watching this. I'm totally enjoying learning about all of what's been going on. Here I am. Okay. Yeah, I was on last year, so I don't want to repeat everything that people have probably already heard. But yes, my grandfather was Earle Hedrick, or A. Earle Hedrick, and was the art director for Bonanza from the inception. So the Bonanza Ranch was his design. Then he was on Bonanza, I believe, 12 years before he left. And then he went on and did a couple of movies after that. And then he finally retired, but he loved his
time.
his second time. Actually, he was retired in 1958, I believe. And then he got a call from David Dortwart and said, Earle, I have this pilot Western series, and it's going to be filmed at Paramount Studios, and you really know Paramount, and you're a great Western set designer. Would you think about coming out of retirement and doing the pilot? My grandfather jumped at the chance. Anyway, he was not a happy retiree. He wanted to work. He loved it. But so he went back and he did the pilot, and the rest is history. He stayed on for 12 years. And so as a teenager, I got to go visit the set several times, once at Paramount Studios, at least once, maybe twice, if I can remember. And then I went with him to Warner Brothers when they had switched over there. And so I got to see the filming. I got to see what he did in the art studio. And then I met Grace Gregory, who was the interior designer, did all of the interior. So I was fascinated to see these models that had been built, and the actual Lauren Green home with the antique furniture. She was the person that I think put a lot of that together. But my grandfather and Grace were very good friends. I got along really, really well. Got to meet all of the cast. The only one I never met was Pernell Roberts, but got to meet Michael Landon and Dan Blocker and Lauren Green, and they were all very, very, very friendly and very nice to me. I really enjoyed watching them in their acting. So yeah, it was quite an adventure, and I'm amazed. I'm just so pleased to see that Bonanza has still got this huge following, and I think my grandfather would be really, really proud if he knew that what he had created has continued to live on. So anyway, I'd be glad to take any questions or any other things you'd like me to add.
Well, that's wonderful, Jim, and I hope you heard what I said earlier, that I think that the Ponderosa Ranch is so inexorably tied to the Bonanza television series, the iconic series, that it's a fair comparison to Star Trek and the USS Enterprise. You just cannot separate those concepts.
It really is. It shows you how it's such a symbol of that. You know, he created a symbol of that era, and yeah. So my brother has a painting he did of the Ponderosa Ranch, and I might have sent that to you, Andy. I'm not sure. I think I took a picture of it.
Yes.
My brother lives in the Houston area, and he's got that. I have another one that I think he had given my mother, and but I haven't taken a picture of that. I actually like the one he did for my brother better. But he was quite an artist. He did a lot of paintings, and I have some of his work. He loved desert, ocean. He was quite an excellent artist all the way around. But architecture was his background, and he had he had basically been designing and building homes in Los Angeles, and then the Depression hit, and he was out of work. And fortunately, he interviewed with Paramount, and they hired him right away. And he moved up rapidly to assistant art director and then full art director. So by 1931, he was art directing the Hollywood movies out of Paramount Studios, and he was with them until 1958 when he retired, and then went back, did Bonanza, and then he did a Western movie that Howard Minsky was a producer, did a famous movie called Love Story. Ryan O'Neal and I don't remember all the cast, but
Ali McGraw.
Ali McGraw. My grandfather was good friends with Howard Minsky, and I knew him also. He lived in the condo complex that my grandparents had there in Palm Springs, and he asked my grandfather to art direct a Western, and my grandfather did. He actually became production manager, and then it was a movie called Jory. Had a great cast, but it was just never, it didn't go like Love Story did, but it was a good movie. It's kind of a good G movie, and so that was, I think, the last movie he made. And then my grandmother was not real well and needing him, and so he retired for good.
My recollection is David Dortort was extraordinarily fond of your grandfather and spoke very highly of him very frequently, and pointed with great pride to the original map of the Ponderosa, which he had on display in a prominent spot in his living room, his home in Bel Air. And he told me that Earle Hedrick painted it, and he loved it, except for the little, I don't even want to call it a flaw, but the little quirk of having north not point.
It was the compass, yes. Well, actually, they had hired an artist, and I think my grandfather worked with this artist. They commissioned him to do it. I think my grandfather was probably working with him on it, but I don't remember the name of the artist. But there was another artist involved in that. But yes, that was that he was not happy with the orientation of the compass because it wasn't accurate. But the artist said, "Yeah, but it ruins the composition." I think my grandfather probably agreed, and so he went along with it and said, "Okay, we'll do it your way." But no, David Dortort, my grandfather, were very good friends, and I remember as a teenager them coming over to my grandparents' place in Laguna Beach on a Sunday night, and we would watch Bonanza, and my grandfather and David Dortort would analyze every little thing that was going on, and oh yeah, that was really good. Oh, yeah. Well, next time I think we ought to, Earle, why don't we try this? So yeah, they had a great relationship. So I did meet him and his family and his son,
Fred,
who I guess, Andy, you've had contact with David's son.
Yes, Fred Dortort.
So yeah, and he was just a young kid. He was a lot younger than I was at that time, closer probably to my younger brother's age. But no, he really told my grandfather, he said, "You're one of the finest Western set designers in Hollywood, and would you come out of retirement?" And I have a letter that David Dortort wrote my grandfather when they had done their first season, and because it was real iffy if it was going to get picked up and if it was going to make it. And I think it was pretty much after about the second season, or when they switched to Sunday night, that it finally really took off. And so I have a very nice letter that David wrote my grandfather, thanking him and complimenting him on helping create the Ponderosa Ranch.
Oh, how wonderful. Well, thank you very, very much for stopping by and sharing those memories. And thank you again to Louise for helming the Ponderosa Ranch segment. This has been very, very interesting, very fascinating, very educational. And now Ginger will cease the recording of this segment, and then we'll go straight into the next one.
Okay, thank you, everybody.